What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters. We have a student request video on rationalizing the denominator when we have a binomial expression. So we're going to look at three problems and slow the pace down and really help you guys understand this topic. And with that being said, let's get started. So with this topic, guys, we're dealing with rationalizing the denominator, but instead of one term, we now have a binomial expression. But before we get there, we have to understand this concept or this equation, a squared minus b squared, because this is what the conjugate is. And what do I mean? So when we expand this or expand the binomials, if we had a plus b times a minus b, what happens is we're going to get a squared minus ab plus ab minus b squared. So basically the middle terms are going to cancel out. And this equation is so important for us, guys, because this is what we have to use to get rid of our radicals. So this is why the difference of squares in this equation is important. So now when we talk about the conjugate, that is just a vocabulary word. And all it's saying is, hey, you're going to look at that binomial expression, let's switch colors, and we're going to basically rewrite it, right? So radical 3, radical 2, and we're going to change the sign. So now it becomes positive, and then whatever we do on the bottom, we're going to do on the top. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by this same conjugate. So this is why we have to do this, guys, so that we could get rid of our radicals altogether. So once I do this, we're just going to focus on multiplying a and a. That's going to give me 3. And when I multiply b and b, right, so that radical 2 times radical 2, I'm going to get minus 2 as a answer. So when I simplify the denominator, I get 1. Why? Because any radical times itself or any square root times itself is just that number without the square root symbol. So now that we've done that, let's bring our fraction in now, right? That's the denominator. Now we're going to distribute. 4 times radical 3 is going to be 4 radical 3. And then 4 times radical 2 is going to be positive 4 radical 2. So once we simplify this, our answer will be 4 radical 3 plus 4 radical 2. We cannot combine these two radicals because the number under the radical is not the same. Now, in problem number 2, it's going to be a little bit more challenging because of the extra term that we have to factor in. Moving on to problem number 2. Issue here, or the difference here, I should say, is that now we have a extra coefficient to worry about. So this doesn't change the conjugate process, right? So we're going to rewrite this expression, 3 radical 5, and we have just regular 5. Change the sign to negative, and then we're going to repeat this step to the numerator. So the issue that I see here with students is that they make an error with this 3. So guys, remember, when we have a radical with a number in front, we multiply the number with the number, radical with radical. So we're going to have 3 times 3, which gives us 9. And then radical 5 times radical 5, which is just the number without the square root. So it's just 5. And then we're going to subtract 25 from this. So when we simplify the denominator, we're going to have 45 minus 25 to get an answer of 20. Now, let's just bring this answer back up here, right? We have 20. Now we need to distribute. So I'm going to take 8 and multiply it by this one term. Radical 5 stays the same, guys. We just multiply 8 and 3 to get 24. Radical 5. And then 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. Now with this step, remember, we're dealing with fractions. So this could be our final answer, right? Can't break down a radical anymore. No radicals in the denominator. But now I notice I could divide 24, 40, and 20 to make it a smaller fraction. And let's see, what number could we divide by? Let's divide by 4. So if I divide by 4, this is going to turn into 6 radical 5 minus 10 all over 5. So this should be our final answer once we reduce our fraction, and bam, that's the answer. But before we go, we're going to look at a word problem where we're dealing with area and how to set the equation up so that we could properly solve and determine our answer. Moving on to the last problem of this video, guys, and we really hope that you found this review on the conjugate and binomial expressions helpful. So our word problem now reads, the area of a parallelogram is 32 plus radical 2 square feet. If the length of the base is 4 plus radical 2 feet, find the height of the parallelogram, right? In simplest form. So I just use the formula area is equal to length times width. If you want to use height, it's the same thing. But why do we need to know the formula? Because we need to rearrange it, guys. So we have area is equal to length times width, right? We have the length already. We want to find W. So to do that, we would have to divide by the length. So we know that our width, or our height in this case, is going to be area divided by the length. So we have to understand what the problem is asking us to do. So when I set this problem up now, right, let's just erase to get some more space. When I set this problem up, we have 32 plus radical 2 all over 4 plus radical 2. Now the issue is radical in the bottom, we have a binomial expression, so we have to find the conjugate, and you guys know it's the same expression with just the opposite sign. So we're going to have 4 minus radical 2. We're going to do the same thing to the numerator, multiply by the same conjugate. Now once I multiply 4 times 4, let's put it down here, it gives me 16. Radical 2 times radical 2, we're going to subtract 2 to give us a final answer of 14 on the bottom. So now that we simplify, we know we have 14 on the bottom of our fraction. And now let's go ahead and distribute in the top part of the numerator. So when I multiply 32 and 4, let's grab the calculator real quick. Let's grab the calculator. So 32 times 4. So we're going to get 128 minus 32 radical 2, right? Now we're going to go to radical 2 and multiply it by what's inside the parentheses. So radical 2 times 4, that's going to be plus 4 radical 2. And radical 2 times negative radical 2, we're just subtracting 2. So now with this step, guys, we have two like terms. 128 minus 2, which gives me 126. And then when we do 32 radical 2 plus 4 radical 2, right? They have the same number under the radical, so we can add them. So what we're going to do is keep the radical, add and subtract the coefficients. So this is going to be negative 28 radical 2. So now with this step, guys, we have a fraction. And anytime we have a fraction, we need to check to see if we could simplify. So I know I could divide by 2, but let's see if there's a larger number. Let's see if we could divide by 14. So 126 divided by 14, wow, that gives me 9. So we could simplify that to 9 minus, and then 28 divided by 14 is going to give me negative 2, and then radical 2 just stays the same. So 9 minus 2 radical 2 will be our final answer. And we really hope that this video was helpful on breaking down how to rationalize the denominator when we have a binomial expression and we use the conjugate. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave comments for future videos you guys would like to see on our channel, or if you guys had questions on today's video. Thank you so much for joining us today.